The day the humans arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters, I knew our civilization was utterly, irrevocably doomed, not because their lone, battle-scarred vessel, the improbable, posed any conceivable military threat. Our most antiquated defense systems could have vaporized it, reducing it to a nebula of cosmic dust and forgotten dreams. No, the chilling premonition that snaked through my chitinous form stemmed from something far more insidious. Their utterly, incomprehensibly casual demeanor about, well, everything. My designation is Zorn Vex, Senior Diplomatic Attaché to Supreme Leader Draft Thor the Quantum Dominion, the undisputed apex predator of 7 star systems. For 300 cycles, I have been his shadow, his right appendage, meticulously observing countless species parade before him. I've witnessed beings of unimaginable power grovel, genuflect, and on occasion, spontaneously void their waste sacks in his awe-inspiring presence. The Supreme Leader's very visage has, on 14 separate occasions, induced cardiac arrest in lesser species. His resonant voice, capable of shattering crystalline structures, has been known to trigger seizures in the weak-minded. And the humans, they, with their disturbingly fluid two-legged physiologies and lack of proper exoskeletons, dare to ask if his magnificent, colossal ceremonial headdress was a subtle attempt to compensate for something. But I'm getting ahead of myself, as is often the case when recounting the chaotic genesis of humanity's impact. Ambassador Vex, the voice of my ever-efficient assistant, Plink, a series of urgent chirps through my meditation chamber's comm unit, ripped me from my customary pre-contact focus. The humans have docked. They have bypassed 3 security checkpoints and, with some inexplicable sorcery, managed to convince Guard Captain Morza to grant them a private tour of the restricted archives. I blinked all 4 of my primary optical sensors in rapid, incredulous succession. They what? How long have they been allowed to exist on our hallowed ground? 17 minutes, sir. Plink's antenna drooped further than I had ever seen them. 17 minutes. My respiratory sacs inflated with a gas that bordered on a shriek. And in that infinitesimal span of time, they have already breached security protocols that took us decades to meticulously establish. Plink's entire form seemed to deflate. They didn't breach anything, sir. They merely talked their way through. Something about cultural exchange and bringing gifts. Guard Captain Morza is currently showing them his offspring's holographic photo collection. He appears quite enamored. I propel myself forward, a blur of clicking exoskeleton against the polished, light-reflective flooring of the diplomatic wing. Humans. We'd only recently deigned to acknowledge the existence of their utterly insignificant planet, Earth, a quaint little blue speck orbiting a rather unremarkable star in a decidedly unglamorous spiral arm of the galaxy. Their technology, by our standards, was akin to crude stone tools, their political systems a baffling kaleidoscope of self-sabotage, and their very anatomy, as previously noted, a disturbing testament to evolutionary oversight. Yet, against all logic, they had cobbled together a spacecraft, the improbable, capable of traversing interstellar distances, utilizing technology that our leading quantum physicists could only describe as the equivalent to strapping a series of malfunctioning fireworks to a particularly stubborn boulder and praying for the best. When I finally skittered into the hallowed, dimly lit expanse of the archives, I found the 3 humans not prostrated in respectful awe, but lounging with an air of breathtaking nonchalance against our sacred historical pillar. This pillar, a repository of our civilization's genesis, was explicitly forbidden to approach within 7 stride lengths, lest one accidentally absorb the raw, unfiltered echoes of ancient knowledge and suffer neural collapse. Hey there. The tallest human, a bipedal anomaly with an unsettlingly direct gaze, extended a 5-fingered appendage toward me. I'm Captain Jake Breener of the Earth vessel Improbable. And these, he gestured with the same appendage to his equally relaxed companions, are my crew members, Dr. Priya Kumar and Lieutenant Miguel Sanchez. I recoiled with an instinctive shudder from the offered hand. My neural implants helpfully inform me that humans routinely use these very appendages for a bewildering array of activities, from the ingestion of sustenance to the elimination of waste products. You will address me as Senior Diplomatic Attaché Zorn Vex. I articulated, each syllable a razor-sharp shard of protocol. You have, in the infinitesimal span of my journey here, violated 17 distinct and non-negotiable protocols. The supreme leader is, to put it mildly, most displeased. The human designated Priacomer, a female with an oddly vibrant facial expression, raised a fur above her seeing organs, an action I now knew indicated amusement or curiosity. Is he? Because we haven't actually met him yet. Unless you guys have some kind of instantaneous telepathic communication going on. She turned to her companions, her voice laced with bizarre enthusiasm. Jake, did you pick up any telepathic vibes? Because that would be so cool. When I finally skittered into the hallowed, dimly lit expanse of the archives, I found the three humans not prostrated in respectful awe, but lounging with an air of breathtaking nonchalance against our sacred historical pillar. This pillar, a repository of our civilization's genesis, was explicitly forbidden to approach within 7 stride lengths, lest one accidentally absorb the raw, unfiltered echoes of ancient knowledge and suffer neural collapse. Hey there, the tallest human, a bipedal anomaly with an unsettlingly direct gaze, extended a 5-fingered appendage toward me. I'm Captain Jake, Breener of the Earth vessel Improbable. And these, he gestured with the same appendage to his equally relaxed companions, are my crew members, Dr. Priacomer and Lieutenant Miguel Sanchez. I recoiled with an instinctive shudder from the offered hand. My neural implants helpfully informed me that humans routinely use these very appendages for a bewildering array of activities, from the ingestion of sustenance to the elimination of waste products. You will address me as Senior Diplomatic Attaché Zorn Vex. I articulated, each syllable a razor-sharp shard of protocol. You have, in the infinitesimal span of my journey here, violated 17 distinct and non-negotiable protocols. The supreme leader is, to put it mildly, most displeased. The human designated Priacomer, a female with an oddly vibrant facial expression, raised a fur above her seeing organs, an action I now knew indicated amusement or curiosity. Is he? Because we haven't actually met him yet. Unless you guys have some kind of instantaneous telepathic communication going on. She turned to her companions, her voice laced with bizarre enthusiasm. Jake, did you pick up any telepathic vibes? Because that would be so cool. A schedule, I hissed, the very notion an affront to cosmic order. You presume to subject the supreme leader of the quantum dominion to your schedule? A schedule, I hissed, the very notion an affront to cosmic order. You presume to subject the supreme leader of the quantum dominion to your schedule? Well, yeah, Lieutenant Sanchez interjected, his gaze casually sweeping over a priceless artifact, a relic from the first expansion, without an ounce of reverence. We packed food for 6 months, and Miguel here gets cranky without his protein supplements after about 4 hours. Plus, I promised my daughter I'd be back for her dance recital in the fall. Dr. Kumar nodded, her expression earnest. Time constraints aside, we're genuinely interested in establishing diplomatic relations. Earth is looking to expand its horizons, make some cosmic friends, maybe set up a trade route or 2. You know, good neighbor stuff. I struggle to process their utter, baffling lack of appropriate fear or deference. The supreme leader does not make friends. He conquers. He subjugates. He demands absolute loyalty and obedience. Captain Breener then produced another strange sound, a whistle, by forcing air through their facial orifices. Sounds intense. Has he considered therapy? I know a great counselor back on Earth who specializes in narcissistic personality disorders. The Grand Audience Chamber, a shocking interruption. Before I could fully process this outrageous, blasphemous suggestion, my communication implant buzzed with an urgent, high-priority ping. It was the Supreme Leader himself, summoning us to the Grand Audience Chamber immediately. You will follow me, I announced, attempting to inject every ounce of my rapidly dwindling dignity into my voice. You will walk 7 paces behind. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will prostrate yourselves the moment the Supreme Leader's presence is announced. Failure to comply will result in your immediate disintegration. The 3 humans exchanged bewildering glances. So, business casual then? Captain Breener asked. My mandibles clicked involuntarily in exasperation. The journey to the Grand Audience Chamber was an excruciating ordeal. The humans, devoid of any discernible sense of urgency, stopped at every alcove to admire architectural features, asked shockingly inappropriate questions about our reproductive biology to passing dignitaries, and attempted to engage anyone with an earshot in what they called small talk. By the time we finally reached the massive, obsidian doors of the chamber, my exoskeleton was vibrating with nervous energy. But I was also somewhat relieved to see that at least 200 of our most prestigious officials had already assembled, their ceremonial armor glinting under the diffused light of 1,000 hovering luminaries. "Wow," Dr. Kumar whispered, her voice carrying a surprising distance in the solemn chamber. "You guys really go all out for these meetings, huh?" "Silence," I hissed, my voice barely audible above the rising hum of the atmospheric enhancers. The Supreme Leader approaches. The massive door swung open with a deep, resonant thrum, revealing a seemingly endless corridor. It was lined with elite guards, each standing 3 meters tall, plasma rifles held at the ready. A thick, swirling fog, scented with a faint tang of ozone, rolled out from hidden vents, an atmospheric enhancer designed to meticulously craft an aura of mystique and, more importantly, dread. Ominous, pulsating music, a composition specifically engineered to trigger primal anxiety responses in the vast majority of sentient species, emanated from concealed sound projectors. And then, emerging from the swirling miasma like a nightmare-giving grotesque, tangible form, came Supreme Leader Drather. He towered at a majestic 7 meters, his powerful chitinous exoskeleton adorned with the bleached bones of conquered enemies, each a chilling testament to his boundless might. 6 massive, articulated limbs extended from his torso, each capable of effortlessly crushing a small star vessel. His head, a formidable construct of overlapping plates, was crowned with an enormous, imposing ceremonial headdress, meticulously crafted from rare metals and embedded with the skulls of former, utterly obliterated rivals. His mandibles clicked rhythmically, a sound that had, over the cycles, become synonymous with inevitable, impending doom throughout the galaxy. Every single dignitary in the vast chamber, without exception, immediately prostrated themselves, pressing their sensory appendages to the cold, polished floor in a display of absolute, abject submission. The humans, however, remained standing, their faces displaying expressions I couldn't quite decipher, a perplexing mixture of curiosity and, inexplicably, faint amusement. Visitors from Earth. The Supreme Leader's voice boomed, amplified to physically painful levels that vibrated through my very bones. You stand before Drather, Supreme Leader of the Quantum Dominion, Conqueror of the 7 Systems, Destroyer of the Moldovan Rebellion, Eternal Sovereign of... "Excuse me," Captain Breener interrupted, raising one of his 5-fingered appendages, as if in a juvenile learning institution. "Sorry to cut in, but is all this fog really necessary?" Dr. Kumar has allergies. The grand audience chamber fell into a silence so absolute, so profound, that the very air seemed to crackle. In my 300 cycles of unwavering service, I had never, not once, witnessed any being dare to interrupt the Supreme Leader's sacred introduction. The standard penalty for such an unspeakable offense was typically a slow, agonizing dissolution in digestive enzymes, while one's loved ones were forcibly compelled to observe. The Supreme Leader's massive, imposing head swiveled slowly, deliberately, toward the human, his 8 eyes, usually gleaming with cold, calculating power, now narrowed to dangerous, burning slits. "You dare interrupt the sacred introduction?" "Well, yeah," Captain Breener shrugged, his shoulders executing a bizarre, casual movement. "It was getting pretty long, and like I mentioned, we're on a bit of a schedule. Plus, all this dramatic fog and the booming voice thing. It's a bit much, don't you think? Like you're compensating for something." My third heart, a secondary organ designed for emotional regulation, stopped beating momentarily. This was it. This was how humanity would meet its ignominious end, not with a glorious last stand against insurmountable odds, but because their representative, a simple primate, couldn't refrain from making a crude biological joke in the sacred presence of the most powerful being in the known galaxy. Compensating. The Supreme Leader's mandibles clicked even faster, a clear sign of either intense, soul-rending rage, or profound, unprecedented confusion? Possibly both. Explain this term. Lieutenant Sanchez coughed into his hand, a clear, desperate attempt to suppress what was unmistakably human laughter. Dr. Kumar elbowed him sharply, a swift, decisive movement. Oh, you know. Captain Briner gestured vaguely at the Supreme Leader's enormous headdress, then at the lingering fog. Big crown, fog machines, booming voice, grandiose titles. On Earth, we sometimes say people do these things to make up for inadequacies in other areas. The Supreme Leader's mandibles clicked with a furious, almost mechanical rhythm. Inadequacies? Drather has no inadequacies. Drather is supreme in all aspects of existence. Sure, Captain Briner nodded soothingly, as if calming a fractious child. That's exactly what someone with inadequacies would say. But hey, no judgment here. We all have our insecurities. I anticipated a familiar crescendo of terror, the pleading, perhaps that spontaneous urination that so many species resorted to in this exact situation. Instead, the humans looked at each other, and then, inexplicably, they laughed. Not nervous titters, not hysterical giggles born of fear. Full, genuine, unrestrained laughter that echoed through the sacred, hallowed chamber, irreverently bouncing off the obsidian walls. Oh, man! Lieutenant Sanchez wiped at his eyes, seemingly shedding a fluid. That's classic. Your species will be eradicated. Dude, you sound like every cheesy alien villain from our old movies, right? Dr. Kumar agreed, still chuckling, her shoulders shaking. I was thinking the exact same thing. Very retro. The Supreme Leader's massive form seemed to swell with an almost palpable rage, his chitinous plates grinding together. You find Drather amusing? Kind of, yeah, Captain Briner admitted, utterly unperturbed. Look, no offense, but we've seen this routine before in our entertainment media. The whole bow before me or be destroyed. It's a bit derivative. I could almost see the Supreme Leader's mighty, multi-lobe brain struggling to process this unprecedented reaction. In all my centuries of unwavering service, I had never, not once, witnessed any being respond as dire threats with anything other than utter, debilitating terror. The humans' laughter was so unexpected, so utterly alien, that it seemed to short-circuit the usual, predictable protocols. Guards! The Supreme Leader finally bellowed, his voice momentarily regaining its amplified intensity. Seize them. When the elite guards, each a paragon of combat efficiency, moved forward, their plasma rifles humming and trained directly on the diminutive humans, Captain Briner simply held up a small, unassuming device. I wouldn't do that if I were you, he said conversationally, his tone impossibly light. This little gadget is linked directly to our ship. If we don't return and enter a specific code within a certain time frame, it will automatically transmit all the classified details of your civilization, coordinates, defense capabilities, weaknesses, directly to Earth. And let me tell you, humans aren't too fond of bullies. The Supreme Leader's mandibles froze mid-click, an almost comical tableau. This is a bluff. Maybe, Dr. Kumar said with an unconcerned shrug. But are you truly willing to take that chance? You don't know much about us yet. For all you know, Earth could have allies you've never encountered, or maybe we've developed weapons you can't even imagine. Lieutenant Sanchez nodded sagely. Like our secret weapon. We call it Teenage Twitter. One negative trending topic about your outfit and your reputation is toast across 17 dimensions. More laughter from the humans. More profound infusion from the Supreme Leader. What do you say we start over? Captain Briner suggested, his tone remarkably cheerful. No threats, no demands for prostration. Just two civilizations getting to know each other. Maybe over drinks? I brought some genuine Earth whiskey that might just blow your... Do you have minds? Or is it more of a collective consciousness situation? The Supreme Leader's enormous form seemed to deflate slightly, the very air around him losing some of its terrifying density. His voice, when he finally spoke again, was at a more reasonable, almost conversational volume. Drather is unfamiliar with this approach to first contact. Yeah, I bet, Captain Briner said, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. Most species probably just roll over when you do your scary voice thing, right? But humans were a bit different. Threat displays don't work so well on us. We evolved on a planet where pretty much everything was trying to kill us, so we developed this weird psychological quirk where sometimes we laugh in the face of danger. Plus, we're naturally curious and stupidly optimistic. Dr. Kumar stepped forward, her expression becoming genuinely serious, devoid of any trace of humor. What we are proposing is a genuine cultural exchange. We learn about you, you learn about us. No conquering, no subjugating. Just mutual respect and potential cooperation. The Supreme Leader was silent for a long, agonizing moment, his giant form perfectly still, save for the occasional, almost imperceptible twitch of a mandible. Finally, he made a gesture I'd never seen before, a subtle downward sweep of lower limb, something almost resembling resignation. Drafter will consider this proposal. And that was the moment. That was a precise moment I knew, with a certainty that vibrated to my very core, that everything was about to change. The Supreme Leader of the Quantum Dominion, conqueror of the Seven Systems, had just engaged in diplomacy with primitives because they laughed at him. Whiskey diplomacy and the Supreme Leader's hidden past, as the humans, still exuding their baffling aura of casualness, were escorted to the diplomatic quarters for refreshments, likely some bland nutrient paste that wouldn't upset their delicate internal systems. I hurried after the Supreme Leader, my mind a tempest of questions and deeply rooted concerns. Supreme One, I ventured cautiously, my voice barely a whisper in the vast, emptying chamber. What are your orders regarding the humans? The Supreme Leader's voice, we replied, was uncharacteristically quiet, almost reflective. These humans, they did not fear me, Vex. No, Supreme One, they did not. In all my cycles of conquest, no species has ever laughed. It is most unusual behavior. Supreme One. The Supreme Leader turned all 8 of his gleaming eyes toward me, a rare direct gaze. I wish to understand this laughter in the face of power. It is interesting. And that was the moment. That was the precise moment I knew, with a certainty that vibrated to my very core, that everything was about to change. The Supreme Leader of the Quantum Dominion, conqueror of the Seven Systems, had just engaged in diplomacy with primitives because they laughed at him. Whiskey diplomacy and the Supreme Leader's hidden past, as the humans, still exuding their baffling aura of casualness, were escorted to the diplomatic quarters for refreshments, likely some bland nutrient paste that wouldn't upset their delicate internal systems. I hurried after the Supreme Leader, my mind a tempest of questions and deeply rooted concerns. Supreme One, I ventured cautiously, my voice barely a whisper in the vast, emptying chamber. What are your orders regarding the humans? The Supreme Leader's voice, when he replied, was uncharacteristically quiet, almost reflective. These humans, they did not fear me, Vex. No, Supreme One, they did not. In all my cycles of conquest, no species has ever laughed. It is most unusual behavior. Supreme One. The Supreme Leader turned all 8 of his gleaming eyes toward me, a rare direct gaze. I wish to understand this laughter in the face of power. It is interesting. And that was the moment. That was a precise moment I knew, with a certainty that vibrated to my very core, that everything was about to change. The Supreme Leader of the Quantum Dominion, conqueror of the Seven Systems, had just engaged in diplomacy with primitives because they laughed at him. Whiskey diplomacy and the Supreme Leader's hidden past, as the humans, still exuding their baffling aura of casualness, were escorted to the diplomatic quarters for refreshments, likely some bland nutrient paste that wouldn't upset their delicate internal systems. I hurried after the Supreme Leader, my mind a tempest of questions and deeply rooted concerns. Supreme One, I ventured cautiously, my voice barely a whisper in the vast, emptying chamber. What are your orders regarding the humans? The Supreme Leader's voice, when he replied, was uncharacteristically quiet, almost reflective. These humans, they did not fear me, Vex. No, Supreme One, they did not. In all my cycles of conquest, no species has ever laughed. It is most unusual behavior. Supreme One. The Supreme Leader turned all 8 of his gleaming eyes toward me, a rare direct gaze. I wish to understand this laughter in the face of power. It is interesting. And that was when I truly understood. The arrival of humans had fundamentally altered the fabric of our existence, not through some superior technology or overwhelming military might, but through their bizarre, inexplicable ability to find humor in the presence of the most terrifying, unchallengeable being in the known galaxy. The quantum dominion would never be the same, and neither, I suspected, would the rest of us. The following solar cycle brought forth changes that were nothing short of unprecedented within the hallowed halls of the Galactic Council headquarters. For the first time in recorded Dominion history, the Supreme Leader had issued an astonishing decree. The fog machines were to be permanently deactivated, and the ominous, dread-inducing background music was to be replaced with what the humans, with their peculiar terminology, referred to as elevator jazz. I remained undecided as to whether this was, in fact, an improvement. "Tell me again about this whiskey," Supreme Leader Drath inquired, his massive mandibles twitching with what I was slowly beginning to recognize as genuine curiosity. He delicately, almost tentatively, examined the amber liquid swirling within his ceremonial chalice, a vessel previously reserved for the blood oaths of conquered kings. We were no longer in the grand audience chamber. Instead, we were seated in a smaller, more intimate audience room, a space typically designated for the swift, efficient execution of minor diplomats. This chamber had been hastily redecorated, transformed into what the humans termed a casual meeting space, complete with plush, albeit slightly too small, seating for the humans. Captain Breener, demonstrating a level of audacious comfort I still found staggering, actually leaned back in his chair, in the very presence of the Supreme Leader, and grinned. It's a traditional Earth beverage, fermented grain, aged in wooden barrels. Burns going down makes everything funnier coming up. The Supreme Leader's mandibles twitched again, a subtle gesture that now read as profound fascination. And this burning sensation is pleasurable to humans? Some of us, Dr. Kumar interjected, ever the purveyor of nuance. Personally, I prefer a nice gin and tonic. The taste is more botanical. Lieutenant Sanchez produced that disturbing snorting sound again. That's because you're fancy, Priya. Some of us like our drinks like we like our diplomatic missions. Rough, strong, and likely to cause regrets in the morning. More of that strange, resonant human laughter filled the room. I watched in astonished horror as several of the elite guards, the very paragons of stoicism, visibly struggled to maintain their unreadable expressions, their own mandibles twitching suspiciously. "Supreme One," I whispered urgently, leaning closer to my leader. The humans continue to display inappropriate familiarity. Shall I remind them of proper protocol? The Supreme Leader waved one of his massive appendages dismissively, a gesture I recognized from his days of simply crushing insubordinate generals. "No, Vex. I find their informality fascinating." My exoskeleton nearly cracked from the sheer force of my shock. The Supreme Leader, the being who once had an admiral executed for merely breathing too loudly during a crucial strategy meeting, was now not only tolerating but actively encouraging this casual, disrespectful behavior. "So," Captain Breener said, with an astonishing lack of decorum, as he refilled the Supreme Leader's chalice with more whiskey, "now that we're getting comfy, let's talk about what Earth and the Quantum Dominion might offer each other. We're pretty new to the whole interstellar community thing, but we've got some unique resources." The Supreme Leader leaned forward, his enormous headdress tilting precariously, a sight that still made my internal organs clench. "What resources could your primitive planet possibly offer the Dominion? Our technological advancement surpasses yours by millennia." Dr. Kumar smiled, a genuinely disarming expression. "Well, for starters, we make excellent whiskey." She raised her glass in a toast. "But beyond that, humans have a knack for innovation under pressure. We develop faster-than-light travel, using components we scavenge from our own primitive satellites, and a microwave oven, a food heating device." I couldn't help but interject, my voice laced with incredulity. "That's impossible." Lieutenant Sanchez merely grinned. "That's what everyone says until they meet humans. We are basically cosmic cockroaches." He paused for dramatic effect. "Incredibly adaptable and impossible to get rid of once we show up. Cockroaches, The Supreme Leader's translator implant seemed to struggle with the term, emitting a faint buzz. Small insects on Earth, Captain Breener patiently explained. Nearly indestructible. They can survive radiation, starvation, even decapitation for a while. They've been around since the dinosaurs and will probably outlast humanity. The Supreme Leader's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine astonishment crossing his ancient features. And you identify with these creatures in terms of survivability? Absolutely, Captain Breener said proudly, thumping his chest. Humans are endurance predators. We evolved chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can survive in almost any environment, eat almost anything, and figure out solutions to problems that would drive most species to extinction. I noticed the elite guards exchanging concerned glances. The very idea of a species that would chase its prey to exhaustion rather than making a quick, efficient kill was deeply disturbing to our highly optimized military minds. But enough about our weird biology, Lieutenant Sanchez said, draining his glass with a gulp. We're more interested in cultural exchange. Like, what do you folks do for fun around here? The Supreme Leader's mandibles clicked in confusion, a sound I had only ever associated with tactical analysis. Fun. Yeah, you know. Sanchez gestured vaguely, encompassing the entire, imposing chamber. Entertainment, recreation, hobbies. When you're not conquering star systems or intimidating diplomats, what do you enjoy? The room fell into an uncomfortable, almost palpable silence. The concept of the Supreme Leader having hobbies was so utterly alien, so profoundly ludicrous, that I genuinely feared the translation implants had malfunctioned completely. The Supreme Leader does not engage in fun, I explained stiffly, my voice strained. His existence is dedicated solely to the expansion and glorification of the quantum dominion. Captain Breener frowned, his brow furrowing a way that, on a lesser being, would have suggested deep concern. That sounds exhausting. All work and no play makes Drather a dull boy, doesn't it? Drather is not a boy. The Supreme Leader boomed, momentarily forgetting his new, more subdued indoor voice. Drather is Supreme Leader of, he caught himself, adjusted his vocal volume with a faint whir, and continued more quietly. Drather has no need for recreation. Power is its own reward. Dr. Kumar leaned forward, her expression softening, radiating an almost painful empathy. With all due respect, Supreme Leader, that sounds lonely. Another silence fell over the room, this one heavier, more profound than any before. The word lonely hung in the air like a forbidden, dangerous utterance, a concept so anathema to the Dominion's philosophy that it felt blasphemous. No one, in the entire recorded history of the Quantum Dominion, had ever dared to suggest that the Supreme Leader, master of countless worlds and billions of subjects, could possibly be lonely. Lonely? The Supreme Leader's massive form seemed to shrink slightly, an optical illusion caused by a subtle shift in his posture. Loneliness is irrelevant to one who commands absolute obedience. Is it, though? Captain Breener asked gently, his voice almost impossibly soft. Humans have found that even the most powerful leaders need genuine connection. Having people fear you isn't the same as having people understand you. I braced myself for the inevitable explosion of rage, for the summary order for executions, for the traditional rending of limbs that typically followed such flagrant impertinence. Instead, the Supreme Leader was silent for a long, ponderous moment. When he spoke again, his voice was uncharacteristically subdued, almost wistful. Before becoming Supreme Leader, Drather once created small sculptures from the mineral deposits of his home world. My jaw plates nearly detached from my face in sheer astonishment. In my 300 cycles of unwavering service, I had never, not once, heard the Supreme Leader mention anything at all, about his life before ascending to power. No way! Lieutenant Sanchez exclaimed, his eyes wide. You're an artist! Not an artist, the Supreme Leader corrected quickly, a flash of his old imperiousness returning. The sculpture served a tactical purpose in visualizing battle formations. Aha! Captain Breener nodded, clearly unconvinced. Battle formations shaped like what exactly? The Supreme Leader's upper limbs fidgeted, a gesture I had never witnessed before, betraying a surprising nervousness. Winged creatures from Drather's homeworld, now extinct, You sculpted birds? Dr. Kumar's face lit up a radiant, genuine smile. Or, well, your planet's equivalent of birds? That's wonderful. Do you still have any of these sculptures? They were destroyed during the Ascension Wars, the Supreme Leader said, and for the first time, I detected a faint, almost imperceptible note of regret in his voice. Such pursuits were deemed unsuitable for a Supreme Leader. Captain Bringer, ever the affable host, refilled everyone's glasses. That's a shame. On Earth, many of our greatest leaders were also artists, writers, musicians. We believe creativity enhances leadership, not diminishes it. Ridiculous! I interjected, feeling an urgent, almost desperate need to restore some semblance of proper protocol to this rapidly deteriorating situation. The Supreme Leader's purpose is to lead, to conquer, to actually vex. The Supreme Leader interrupted, his voice now calm and steady. Perhaps the humans have a point. The Dominion has existed in its current form for 10,000 cycles, yet we have produced no great works of art, no music that is played beyond our borders, no literature studied by other species. I stared at my leader in utter horror. Was the whiskey, that crude earth beverage, affecting his neural functions? Supreme One, our military might is unmatched. Our technological superiority is beyond question. What need have we for art? Lieutenant Sanchez laughed, a loud, booming sound. You sound like my Uncle Pablo when I told him I was studying xenobiology instead of business. What good is knowledge if it doesn't make money? He mimicked an older human's voice with surprising accuracy. But here's the thing. Culture is what survives when everything else falls. The Roman Empire is long gone, but we still read their poetry. What is this Roman Empire? The Supreme Leader asked, suddenly, intensely interested, his 8 eyes fixed on Lieutenant Sanchez. A history lesson, a new policy, and the power of laughter. And so began a history lesson I never, in my wildest, most improbable dreams, could have imagined. For the next several time units, the humans, with their infectious enthusiasm and baffling tangents, regaled the Supreme Leader with tales of Earth's ancient civilizations. They spoke of mighty empires that rose and fell, leaving behind not just ruins and battle scars, but an indelible legacy of ideas, art, philosophy, and stories that continue to influence their world thousands of years later. The Supreme Leader listened with rapt attention, occasionally asking questions that revealed a genuine, childlike curiosity I had never before witnessed. These Romans built an empire across much of your known world. Yet you remember them not for their conquest, but for their laws and poetry, he asked, incredulity lacing his deep voice. Dr. Kumar nodded. Military power fades, borders change, but ideas and art endure. Even though the Roman Empire fell, Roman architecture still influences our buildings. Their language evolved into several modern languages. Their concept of citizenship shaped our modern democracies. Democracy. The Supreme Leader pronounced the word slowly, as if tasting something unfamiliar, perhaps even distasteful. Your planet is governed by this system where leaders are chosen by common citizens. Captain Briner grinned. More or less. It's messy and inefficient, and sometimes downright stupid, but it works for us. Humans don't do well with absolute authority. We tend to get cranky and start revolutions. Revolutions? The Supreme Leader's translator implant seemed to struggle with this new, volatile concept. Yeah, it's kind of our thing, Lieutenant Sanchez said casually, shrugging his shoulders. Someone tells us we can't do something, and suddenly that's all we want to do. Tell us we can't have tea without paying taxes? Boom, tea party and a revolutionary war. Tell us we can't go to the moon? Boom, we're playing golf on the lunar surface a decade later. The Supreme Leader's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with an unsettling blend of fascination, and perhaps even a hint of something resembling respect. Your species deliberately defies authority as a matter of principle? Pretty much. All 3 humans said in unison, then erupted into laughter at their own synchronization. I felt a growing sense of cold dread. The humans were openly admitting to being naturally rebellious, prone to revolution, and inherently resistant to absolute authority, traits that, in any other species, would have immediately marked them for swift subjugation or total eradication. Yet, The Supreme Leader seemed utterly fascinated rather than outraged. "And this defiance," the Supreme Leader continued, his voice surprisingly thoughtful. "This laughter in the face of power, it is a survival mechanism?" Dr. Kumar considered this, her expression serene. "Partly, yes. Humor helps us cope with fear and uncertainty. But it's more than that. Laughter creates bonds between people. It breaks down barriers. When we laugh together, we recognize our shared experiences, our common humanity, or, in this case, our common sentience." Captain Breener leaned forward, his demeanor shifting back to the casual but persuasive diplomat. "Which brings me back to my original point, Supreme Leader. Earth doesn't want to be conquered or subjugated. We wouldn't be very good subjects anyway. Too mouthy, too rebellious, too fond of making jokes at inappropriate moments. But we could be excellent allies." "Allies?" The Supreme Leader repeated the word, as if it were a foreign, almost blasphemous language. "The quantum dominion does not have allies. We have subjects or enemies. Well, maybe it's time for a policy update." Lieutenant Sanchez suggested, ever pragmatic one. "Think about it. An alliance with Earth gives you access to our resources, our innovations, our whiskey, without the hassle of trying to keep us in line. And trust me, keeping humans in line is like herding cats." Cats. Another moment of translation confusion. Small predatory mammals that absolutely refuse to follow directions, Dr. Kumar explained, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Adorable, but completely unmanageable. Like humans," Captain Breener added with a wink. The Supreme Leader fell silent, his massive form perfectly still, as he processed this unprecedented proposal. Finally, he rose to his full, imposing height, towering over the humans, a silent, monumental presence. "Drafter requires time to consider this alliance concept. You will remain as guests until a decision is reached. Vex will attend to your needs." With that, he swept from the room, his elite guard scrambling to follow, their perfectly synchronized movements now just slightly off-kilter, reflecting the ripple of disruption the humans had caused. As soon as the Supreme Leader was gone, I turned to the humans, my chitinous hands clenching involuntarily. "Do you realize what you have done? You have completely disrupted millennia of established protocol. The Supreme Leader is actually considering an alliance rather than conquest. The High Council will be in utter chaos." Captain Breener, astonishingly, clapped me on what approximated my shoulder. "Sounds like you guys could use a little chaos. Shake things up a bit. Your civilization has been running on autopilot for what, 10,000 years? 10,000 cycles of glorious expansion and stability." I corrected, my voice sharp with indignation. Lieutenant Sanchez raised an eyebrow, a deceptively simple gesture that conveyed a surprising amount of meaning. "Stability is another word for stagnation, my friend. When was the last time your empire invented something truly new? Created something genuinely beautiful? Had a really good belly laugh?" I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it again, the words catching in my throat. The uncomfortable truth was, I couldn't remember the last true innovation in Dominion society that wasn't solely for military application. Our technological advancement had plateaued centuries ago. Our cultural production was limited to propaganda, exalting the Supreme Leader. And laughter? Laughter, in its raw, unrestrained form, was practically treasonous. "You see," Dr. Kumar said gently, her voice surprisingly soft, "humans might seem chaotic and irreverent, but that chaos drives our creativity, our innovation, our resilience. We laugh because the universe is absurd, and recognizing that absurdity helps us survive it. The treaty signing, a new dawn. Over the next several cycles, a remarkable, almost unbelievable transformation took place. The Supreme Leader, Drather, began meeting regularly with the humans, often dismissing his elite guard, so they could speak privately without the rigid strictures of formal protocol. Rumors, whispered in hushed tones throughout the Galactic Council, spread like wildfire. The Supreme Leader had been seen laughing. He had requested detailed information about Earth's diverse artistic traditions. Most shocking of all, he had asked for clay from his home world, a material he had not touched in millennia, and had reportedly begun sculpting again. The day the first alliance treaty between the mighty quantum dominion and the insignificant planet Earth was finally signed, I stood at my usual solemn position beside the Supreme Leader's throne. Gone was the enormous, cumbersome ceremonial headdress, replaced by a smaller, more practical crown that still conveyed authority, but no longer demanded prostration through sheer visual intimidation. The fog machines remained off, their vents silent. The ominous, soul-chilling music had been permanently replaced by something the humans referred to as jazz fusion, a strangely harmonious blend of disparate sounds. "You're sure about this, Supreme One?" I asked quietly, my internal sensors still struggling to reconcile this new reality. An alliance rather than conquest? It goes against everything the Dominion stands for, against every precept we have held for millennia. The Supreme Leader's mandibles clicked thoughtfully, a different rhythm now, one that spoke not of threat, but of deep contemplation. Perhaps what the Dominion stands for needs to change. He turned his primary eyes to me, a gaze that was no longer purely cold and commanding, but held a newfound depth. "Vex, for 10,000 cycles we have conquered and ruled through fear. Yet in all that time, have we created anything that will truly outlast our military might? When the quantum dominion eventually falls, as all empires must, according to human history, what will remain of us?" I had no answer for him. It was a question no one in the Dominion had ever dared to articulate, let alone ponder. The humans entered the chamber, not with the traditional prostrations and forced humility, but with relaxed smiles and friendly waves. But, crucially, behind them came a stream of other diplomats from worlds across the Dominion, worlds that had previously only known the Supreme Leader's iron fist. Many looked confused, certainly, but also cautiously optimistic about this unprecedented, paradigm-shifting change in policy. "Before we begin," the Supreme Leader announced, his voice powerful, resonating naturally through the chamber, no longer artificially amplified to painful levels. "Drather wishes to present a gift to the representatives of Earth." From behind his throne, he produced a small, exquisitely rendered sculpture, a delicate representation of an Earth bird, what the humans call an eagle, crafted with astonishing detail from the iridescent, crystalline stone of his home world. Captain Breener accepted it with genuine delight, his human face lighting up. "It's beautiful, Supreme Leader, a symbol of freedom from both our worlds." "Freedom," the Supreme Leader repeated, testing the word on his mandibles, a concept as new to him as the taste of whiskey. "Yes, perhaps that is what Drather has found through this alliance. Freedom from the weight of being feared." As the historic treaty signing proceeded, I watched the Supreme Leader engage with the humans as equals, a truly astonishing spectacle. He joked. He debated points of the agreement. He even, on occasion, deferred to their expertise on certain matters. And I realized with profound, almost overwhelming clarity that the humans had accomplished what no military force in the galaxy could have achieved.